All right, good morning, guys. Today is April the 20th, and as usual, we'll be going over analysis for, excuse me, US 30, gold, and EU. Um, US 30 gold and EU. So yesterday we took a minus 0.5% loss on US 30, but as you can see, that was ideally a fake out because US 30, I think we took the loss somewhere around here because we caught the sell. We got faked out to the top, and then US 30 came and dropped heavily for the rest of the day and through the night. However, we did also enter a buy on gold last night that was around this zone, around 1991.40. Price just consolidated through Asia. Price came back to around the entry point. And then this morning we had a spike up to take profit. So this trade for gold yesterday was with a 0.5% risk. So that ideally brought the result yesterday for Wednesday to break even. So yesterday we had one losing trade on US 30, and then we were able to recover the loss with a gold trade. This morning after news, I did take this sell on gold. Because I did send the markup. So every morning I send the markups in the Discord. So you can see there was a gold markup around 2011, which is also close to the previous monthly high. So we had a supply zone within a supply zone. So once this news candle closed in the sell zone, in that supply zone within a supply zone, I just entered a sell on gold. So this does not count towards the return that we're recording because these returns are only trades we take during the live session and any trades I send out in the Discord. So this trade I just took by myself, went with a 50 pip stop loss, 50 pip take profit, ideally from that supply zone within a supply zone. Yeah, so right now, US 30, let's see, we have these two established trend lines. Excuse me. The other thing to notice, for US 30, we are creating a, give me 1 second. We are creating a death cross on the hourly. So you can see on the hourly time frame, on the hourly time frame, the 9 EMA is approaching the 200 EMA. 9 EMA is approaching the 200 EMA to the downside. So personally, I am bearish on US 30. Also, I've been talking about this trend line the past 2 or so days. So you can see I drew this trend line in and around where, so if I remember this correctly, I drew this trend line someplace around here. You can go back to the live sessions, but we had this zones established. So if we keep replaying this, you can see how this trend line on the hourly, but right now, we don't trade the first 10 minutes of market open, so we just need the market to stabilize. So that's why I'm going over other analysis. So this trend line on the hourly, you can see how it held. So this trend line will be a point of interest for any trades going forward. So like 2 or 3 days ago, I did say that I remember we were trading this actual candle because this candle was like around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I had mentioned, like, for example, this particular candle, if it closed below, we needed to wait for the next hourly candle to retest and maybe close below. If it closed above, then we didn't get a confirmation for a sell. So for any sell, we had to wait for closure below on the hourly of this trend line and then retests of the trend line and then closure below. And you can see that sell finally came, but for me, it was probably during Asia session, so I didn't enter. But I just want you to see, I want you guys to see how critical this trend line has been holding back to back. And after then, US 30 has just been dropping after it gave that retest. So right now, we are creating a death cross on US 30. Yeah, so I am in a sell for US 30, but that's off of the account taking the signal. So that's not a trade I entered manually, but we did have a sell signal for US 30, and then I do have that account that's taking those signals manually. But I'm sorry, automatically. So right now, if I was trading US 30 currently, since of course we don't trade signals as is, so right now US 30 is coming off of a demand zone, off of the current weekly low. We also have demand zones down here. We have demand zone within a demand zone around 33,600. We also have a daily bearish high and daily bullish high. Also another demand zone within a demand zone around 33,590. So for me, this support right here seems weak. The reason I'm saying that is because right, like when you're trading, you want to see where price is likely to head, right? So if we are having this death cross on the hourly, and for any potential reversal, I would be looking for price to, instead of like I went over yesterday, I focus more on the supply zones within a supply zone or demand zones within a demand zone. So for example, the darker shaded areas, so the darker shade of green is what I call the demand zone within a demand zone. And the opposite is also true. The darker shade of red is the supply zone within a supply zone. So if US 30 is to reverse to the upside, more than likely they would grab liquidity at these zones, right? And down here, we also have the 4-hour bullish low. We have also the daily bullish high here. So to me, the downtrend is more probable than the uptrend. Also, we do have that death cross coming in on the hourly. So this is what I expect. And then maybe reversal back at around this part. Not to say it can definitely go back up from here, because you can see on the 5-minute time frame we have some sort of double bottom, equal lows here on the 5-minute. Yeah, but all these wicks, you can see this wicks from the top side show you that there's actually heavy sellers here. On the other hand, we also do have an hourly bullish low here. But we need, for us to even enter any trade, we need to wait for the first 10 minutes to confirm. So yesterday and ideally even the day before has just been a bunch of consolidation. Even for the signals results that I posted this morning, you can see was just ideally fake outs, especially like the gold signals. It was selling ideally at the bottom and buying at the top. So you had like a bunch of quick opposite signals coming up. So that's going to happen during consolidation. And I did say, like, personally, like yesterday is when I also did start a challenge for somebody else. But knowing that these signals have a high win rate, like that doesn't discourage me, because like this is a 100K account. So long as I don't adjust any risk, and I'm not even manually intervening on any of these trades, so long as I just leave them, I know that as much as these signals have the high win rate, even on terrible days, I'm not going to be down that bad. So this is a 100K account, only down, what is this, 1.5%. Given like on a good day, I can be able to make 2%. You're not going to win every day, even with signals. Okay, so I'm also looking for, I can see this trend line to the downside, right there. This right here is a hanging trend line because that's not yet established. Gold, let's see. So gold, you can see for gold, we are in heavy demand zones. So I'll just take this off. This is the gold buy that I took. I'm sorry, gold sell that I took this. So for me, I'm already up like 0.5% for the day, just on the account I trade manually. So here gold is rejecting from also another supply zone within a supply zone. It's under this trend line, and you can see here this trend line, right? Static trend lines, they're gonna be like points of confluence. So you can see how price got attracted to this to this supply zone on the trend line, broke below, came back above, tried to close up and close below, and right now price is rejecting from this supply zone. Personally, for gold, let's see what else we have for gold. We have this trend line to the upside. All right. For EU, you can see EU is in heavy sell zones. So heavy supply zone. So for any trade on EU, let's also see the areas that we have: weekly open, hourly bearish zone, hourly bearish zone, hourly bullish zone. So we have a bullish zone actually here. But we have more bearish zones. So actually for me to sell EU, I would rather sell EU at around 1.10, because we do have this hourly bullish zone. As much as we are in heavy supply zones within supply zones, you can see that we are pretty much consolidating on the hourly, right? This chart to my right, we are pretty much squeezed between two areas. So I would rather wait for the optimal point to sell EU, or to try and sell EU. So for EU, same as yesterday, I don't think I'm gonna look for any trades on EU, but what I'm looking for on EU, probably something like this, and then if price, this is what's going to determine whether EU stays down or continues back up. But then that's what I would consider. So at the top here, this is where I would only consider selling EU around here. So before then, there's no need for me to even look at EU. See what else. Okay, so I think, yeah, so 10 minutes already passed. So we are rejecting from the hourly bullish low. I'll delete this in order to get rid of a bunch of lines. So these are the trend lines we're using. Hourly bullish low. Let's also see my MT4. So there's definitely an uptrend. So you can see we're just creating, all the 5-minute candles are closing higher and higher. So for me, the buy on US30, if I was to buy US30, I would wait for closure above this trend line. So keep in mind, this trend line to the top is is a hanging trend line because it doesn't have a second point of confluence. But up here, you also see we have a 4-hour bullish high. So for me to buy US30, I need a closure above this trend line, which would also line up with a closure above the 4-hour bullish high, and then retest and closure above. That's the only point that I would buy US30. So this is what I'm waiting for here with a 50 pip stop loss, 50 pip take profit, 0.5% risk. And as we went over yesterday, a couple of the trades we've taken losses on. Previously, I used to wait for either retest of the 9 EMA, retest of a trend line, and retest of structure. But in some of the trades we've taken recently, some have been winners, some have been losers. I kind of omitted that. So I'll go back to that style of trading because that's where we were getting the no drawdown trades. So it's just because I'm just developing a lot of strategies. So not that I omitted them on purpose, I just forgot about them. So for me to buy US 30 here, I need a candle closure above this trend line. I also would prefer this trend line to be an established trend line, and then retest of the trend line and closure above. And at that point, that's when I'll enter the buy on US 30. On the other hand, for a sell on US 30, I need this trend line to hold to be established as a static trend line. That is to mean I need a lower high to be established here. And then at that point, I will wait for another retest of this trend line and closure below. And that's the point that I would sell. But keep in mind, we do have a death cross coming in on the hourly on US 30. The other thing to keep out on, right? These 5-minute candles are closing higher and higher. So we are ideally in an uptrend currently on US 30. The other way to look at it, like if you want to scalp in and out, if a death cross is coming in or if a golden cross is coming in and it's supposed to materialize, especially on the higher time frame, you can wait for the retest of the 9 EMA or 200 EMA on the higher time frame and enter a quick scalp up there. So here you'd be looking to possibly, and this is not an official strategy, but this is just like if you just want to enter for quick 10 pips or so, you can wait for the retest of the 200 EMA or 9 EMA on the hourly, and then enter like a short scalp. So that's just another little trick you can use for that. Let's see what else. All right, let me make sure that my account is set up. 50 pip stop loss, 50 pip take profit. Gold, you can see, so gold is the same thing, right? I would be looking for this to be established as a lower high so that we have a static trend line. So right now I'll draw this, but I'm pretty sure if I go on the 1 minute, this trend line will be established because we'll probably have a lower high right there on the 1 minute. Not yet, but maybe in another minute or so we should have that. But this is a sell zone on on gold as well. Based on my own analysis. Okay, there goes US 30. So as we wait, there's another thing I wanted to bring up. So previously when I first started trading, right, I joined all these groups and everybody had their own way to trade. One thing that I realized is that some of these groups I should have, as soon as I learned something, right, I should have stuck to it and applied it, because some groups I joined, they didn't teach me about risk management, which is one of the biggest factors that I teach here, or try to apply here, risk management. So a good amount of them were good traders, going in with heavy lot sizes, but then that didn't teach me anything about risk management. Others would say right? They would maybe have a 1 to 7 risk to reward per trade. And then if the trade is like 10 pips in profit, they talk about set break even, right? But ideally, if you do that, you end up sometimes with a negative risk to reward. But if you're talking about the psychology of a trader, most times if you're in a trade, and you're maybe 10 pips in profit and the TP is like 50 pips in, supposed to be 50 or 70 pips, some of the times you're not gonna set break even, and then sometimes you're going to end up with a loss, right? But then some of these groups would ideally expect you to just know, oh, if you're 10 pips in profit, go ahead and set break even. But literally, I mean, I've been there. Even right now, sometimes I don't set break even for my own trades. But what I'm trying to bring up to you guys is, if you find some of the things that I do, I mean, my strategies are easy, right? So 1:1 risk to reward. If you're 50% or in profit, right, you go ahead and set break even, right? I don't talk about if you're 10 pips in profit or if you're 10% in profit, if you're 20%. But if anything I do, if you had some progress before you joined this group, and then after you started following me, maybe you started failing on some other things or becoming worse than you were before. Honestly, I would say not that I have received any bad feedback or anything, but it's just I just this morning I was attending a live stream of one of the groups that I was in, and I could see a bunch of things they were talking about that ideally to me didn't make sense, especially knowing a lot of people maybe are not yet good traders and they're just trying to learn. So this is one of the reasons right where I started my own stream. I've been part of a lot of groups, and one of the reasons I jumped from group to group is that I found that some of these groups were making me over leverage. Sometimes we're trading news and then I just ended up blowing a bunch of my accounts. So actually what I did a bunch of times, like nowadays I trade news just by myself, because sometimes I would trade news with somebody and then he's like, oh, buy heavy, use a Lambo lot or whatever, and then I would end up blowing my account, right? So if you find yourself, maybe you want to take a trade and it lines up with your confluence, but sometimes what I'm talking about does not make sense to you, like just objectively, and not just being subjective. You don't have to be here. I don't want to put it in a bad, of course I want you guys around, but my goal here is to make you the best trader you can ever be. So if anything I ever do on this live stream messes with your psychology as a trader and does not improve your psychology as a trader, honestly, definitely there's other people out there that you can, and again, I didn't receive any complaints from anybody. This is just coming from, this morning I just joined a live stream I used to join, and the person just did not make sense to me anymore. And I felt that what they were doing can affect just a lot of people negatively, which also did. But if it ever comes a time on this live stream that you feel like you're not growing, definitely my goal here is for you to always be your best self, and always look for other opportunities out there. Yeah, I just wanted to pass that off to you guys. Yeah, but you see what I talked about, you can get into a quick scalp from the 9 EMA or 200 EMA. So you can see here on the hourly, we have this death cross coming up. So I did say up here you can enter into quick scalps for like 10 or 20 pips on the retest of the 200 DMA or 900 DMA. So price actually came up here, retested the 200 DMA and dropped a good amount of pips, like 750, actually dropped like 50 pips. Yeah, but for me, confirmation for any buy, I just need closure above, and you can see we're still forming higher highs on the 5-minute, but right here you can see there's a bunch of sellers up here. So for me to buy, I need closure above this trend line. I actually need like possibly a lower high to be created on any of these candles. And then I need a closure above the trend line, which would line up with closure above the 4-hour bullish high. And then the next candle needs to retest and close above. And at that point, I will buy US 30. For a sell, it's the opposite. For a sell, especially for the sell, I need this trend line to be established as a static trend line, meaning that I need a lower high to be established either here or here. And at that point, I will, once that's established, I will wait for a retest of the trend line and then closure below. And then at that point, I will enter the sell on US 30. For gold, let's see on the 1-minute if this trend line is established. Yeah, so there you go. So on gold, for the 1-minute, the trend line is established. However, on the 5-minute, the trend line still is a static trend line. But you can see even for gold, we are in a heavy, we are in a supply zone within a supply zone. So I expect gold to dip, and I expect US 30 to also dip. Yeah. EU, you can see EU is still propping up. I did say for EU, I expect it to break through all of this, and the only place I would be looking to sell EU would be up there at that last supply zone in a supply zone. Yeah, so right now we'll just wait for US 30. and then see how that goes. Um, does anybody have any questions? I know yesterday, yesterday the market has just been consolidating. We just had a bunch of fake outs, but that's the importance of just risk management. So for me, I'll always go for risk management or push risk management before anything. So you can see same with this account, right? This is the account I was posting that copied the US 30 and gold signal. So for just for today, that account is down 1.5%. But you can see right yesterday, this is this week. This week alone, it's up 2%. This month alone is up 7.58%. So yeah, it's not a big deal. So the best thing with consolidating markets, almost always after the fact, you get a nice move up. So same thing with US 30 yesterday, right? It faked us out, stopped us out during this heavy consolidation, and then came into this supply zones up here. Actually, these ones I drew yesterday, today. So I'm not sure if we had any supply zones up there. I think we did, but anyway, you can see that it faked us out and then came back down, right? So here you could have waited and drawn your trend lines and just looked for an entry. So here I can see this, draw this. And then this one was from the downside, right? And then here you could have made your decision, right? So you could have waited for break below this trend line, retest and close below, and then at that point you could have entered the sell. We had this golden cross coming in. So ideally here they just faked the sellers out, because remember one other thing we were entering the sell for, it was based off of this trend line. So actually this week right here, this is the week that's right here that came out and faked out the sellers and then dropped all the way back. So I remember talking about this and mentioned that some of the traders like us who look at trading opposite of what retailers are doing sometimes, the banks or the big market makers don't want us to go the same way as they're going. So most of the times they'll try, and that's why I'd saved even for this position, maybe like 100 pip stop loss or whatnot. So sometimes they'll just wick you out and then keep dropping price. So you can see here, because also we traded this hourly trend line yesterday. So price wicked up to fake out the people who had seen the sell coming. And then guess what? They brought price all the way back down the rest of the night. Yeah, so sometimes we get trapped by that. But hopefully not every day. Just go ahead and close this out. So ideally for US 30, I just need that trend line on the 5-minute to be established. And this is fine. If it keeps dropping, even better, because we'll get an established lower high, possibly here. I'm guessing there's a lower high up there on the 1-minute. So yeah, or it's actually a higher high. Yeah, but I would rather it get established on the 5-minute so that I know what candle it is. But you can see, as I said, I was expecting US 30 to go down. This is the only opportunity to buy up here if we get a closure above this zone. For a sell, I did say I'm waiting for an established lower high on the 5-minute, and then I'll wait for retest of the trend line and closure below, and that at that point I will sell US 30. So, and I'm guessing gold is doing, yeah. So gold is the same way too, right? Gold is in a supply zone within a supply zone, and gold is melting to the downside. So we at this point we just need to wait for gold and US 30 to establish a lower high on the 5-minute time frame. So if it keeps dropping, that's fine. Don't chase it. Let it just keep dropping. EU, we are in our hourly bearish high, hourly bearish low. For EU, we are definitely in a sell. Oh no, wait, this is no wonder I keep wondering why this chart is not moving. I was in the 30-minute. So we are in a supply zone within a supply zone. For EU here, if we close below the 9 EMA, no, EU is still the same, because here on the 5-minute, that's the trend line. And then yeah, so even on the on EU on the 5-minute, we have a trend line from the downside here to here, and then we have this higher high to this point right here. I'm thinking of entering a sell once, because if this closes below, it will be closing below the trend line, below this established trend line, and below the 9 EMA, and we have an hourly. However, we do have an hourly bullish low here and an hourly bullish high. Let me see, 935 would be up here. Uh, if we do get a closure below the 9 EMA, so let's see, this candle closes in the next 2 minutes. So what I'll be looking for on EU right here will be, let me take this off, closure below the 9 EMA on the 5-minute, and then retest and closure below the 9 EMA. And at that point, I will be looking to sell EU around that zone. Because ideally it's closing below the 9 EMA and below this static trend line or established trend line. I don't know if anybody caught this sell on US 30 from the 9 EMA or 200 EMA on the hourly. Like I mentioned, that was an area to catch a quick sell on US 30 because we did have that death cross that was incoming. This one, what I'll do. So for any buyers, definitely watch out for this level. We should have an established lower high here. So for any buyers, even after the live session, watch out for 33,750 area. Yeah, gold still has not created anything. That's on the 5-minute as well. EU, we need to wait for the next 5-minute candle. So it looks like this 5-minute candle is closing below the 9 EMA. We need to wait for the next 5-minute candle to retest and close below. And then at that point, we can look to sell. I like that trade because, so let's give like an example of where the stop loss would be, short position. So normally we go for 20 pips and 20 pips. So the only thing with this, the stop loss right here is around 1.9954. So the stop loss is around right here, and this is still within the supply zones. So for that particular trade, just a second. For that particular trade, I would feel better if the stop loss was above the supply zone at the top. So yeah, 30 pips. Yeah, I don't like having like a. It's fine. This one will be fine. I wonder where. Just a second. Yeah, so for EU, I'm still not in that trade. I'm waiting for this current 5-minute candle to close. And you can see, so the previous candle closed below the 9 EMA. I need this candle right here to close below the 9 EMA for me to enter the sell on EU. US 30 still going. So for here, I do expect a rejection off of this particular trend line right here. But I'm pretty sure we are heavily bearish on US 30 as is right now. So price is still dipping, and there it goes. For our bullish low, but US 30 is still heavily bearish. So and remember, so this definitely is a static trend line. I definitely expect rejection off of it. But nowadays, I don't trade off of the trend lines anymore. I would rather wait for the reversal, because the reversal gives me high probability trade. And especially that comes after a heavy trend. Because the thing with trying to catch the trend line, as much as a trend line is established, or as much as the trend line might be established, you might get a spike to the downside, and then US 30 keeps having a waterfall movement. And you can see the death cross already came on US 30. The other thing I was looking at this morning, right? We have an obvious structure for US 30. So structure got broken down by this trend line we've been trading for the last 2 days. The first structure got completed here around 33,728. The next structure for US 30 is around the daily bullish high and daily bearish high, which is around 33,589. So that's the next stop for US 30. But you can see right now it's rejecting off of this 4-hour bullish low, which is also part of the structure. But US 30 is headed to around 33,570, which is around here, right? So that's what I was talking about. You want to look where price is headed. So 33,570 lines up with this demand zone within a demand zone. So US 30 can definitely keep trending down in this between these two trend lines here once this is established. And then once US 30 gets down here around the daily bullish high, it just spikes back to the upside temporarily, and then still comes back down. But you can see right here, US 30. So keep in mind, I did say that I still expect US 30 to go to 29,000. If I zoom out on this, you can see this whole structure right here that will more than likely get completed this way. So this is what I expect for US 30 to happen, right? So if I draw that, you can automatically see the structure that I'm talking about, right? Kind of like a mountain. Yeah, so that's what I expect to happen to US 30. I just reset this. Yeah, so here is just a matter of patience. I'm just waiting on this lower high to get established as a lower high, or whatever point to get established as a lower high. So for this trade right here, if I take that off, doesn't look like this candle will close below the 9 EMA. So that's fine, you know. Still, I would rather for it to keep going up, so that when the sell does come, or if the sell does come, it will be a sell that makes sense, and then it will have high probability. Because for me to enter any sell on EU, I ideally would want my stop loss to be above 1.10100. So I would ideally want like a sell. That's what I was talking about. This would be my ideal area for a sell up here. Yeah. So I would ideally be looking for a sell up here, because my stop loss would be above this supply zone within a supply zone. So gold went back up again. For gold, this trend line is still not established. Looks like we'll have to move it there. And this is fine, right? I actually want this trend line to go somewhere up there, so that once the lower high is established here, by the time we're getting the retest of the trend line, it will be around this supply zone in a supply zone. So ideally, this is even better, right? I want this trend line to be pushed a little bit further up, so that when a lower high is established, by the time we're getting the entry will be around a sell zone. So that's actually perfect what's happening. Does anybody have any questions? Right. And I might have to end the session early in like 24 minutes, so around like 30 minutes from now. because I have to run off to take care of something else. So this is ideally just a matter of waiting. So here we are waiting for this trend line from the upside to be established. And same thing for US 30, waiting for this trend line on the upside to be established with a lower high. And EU is pumping up, which is perfect. So the only thing with this is that if we do get a candle, a 5-minute candle closing above if we do get a 5-minute candle closing above this hanging trend line, only thing with hanging trend lines, I don't like trading them by themselves. Yeah, but we do have that for our bullish high. So if we do get a candle closing, a 5-minute candle closing above this hanging trend line, and we get a retest of the hanging trend line and closure above, personally, I'm not going to take that trade because I've found that trading hanging trend lines can be like a disaster waiting to happen. But again, if it does line up with any of your confluences, that's what matters for me. If a 5-minute candle closes above a hanging trend line and then retests and closes above, for me that's not a trade that I'm comfortable entering. But if you do have other confluences that align with that, feel free to enter that. The only other trade I would enter, now what I would be looking for would be a retest of the 4-hour bullish high. So ideally we got maybe something like this, right? Closure above this trend line and closure above the 4-hour bullish high, and then a perfect retest of the 4-hour bullish high and closure above. So that is the only time. And actually, I wouldn't be using the trend line to enter that trade. I would be using the 4-hour bullish high to enter that trade. And another thing we've also done in the past, we have divided these zones, the 4-hour bullish highs and bullish lows, we divide them into two, and then we do like the 3-trade entry, right? So let me see if we could have done that. That's 100. So this is 710. 710 is the middle of this zone. 710. So ideally, how we trade these zones, your first trade is the top of the zone, 4-hour bullish high. Your next trade is in the middle of that zone. Your last trade is at the bottom of that zone. So once this, if we get a retest of 34,710, I will do a filler buy on gold. So I'm not going to use 0.5%. I will use 0.25% maybe. And ideally, you want the stop loss to be below the 4-hour bullish low. So we've done this practice before where if we have especially high time frame order blocks, so like a 4-hour bullish high or hourly bullish high and bullish low, we just divide that zone into two. And then we line up 3 trades, right? The first one is at the top, the second one is at the middle, and the third one is at the bottom. So once price comes back down to around 34,710, I will enter into a filler buy on gold with 0.25%. The best trade I'm looking for is closure above this 4-hour bullish high. And there you go. We got an established trend line on the 5 minutes. So this is what we are waiting for. So right now, right, it still lines up. If we get a closure above this trend line and then retest of the trend line and closure above, I will enter that. And for me, this trade, I'll use a 0.5% risk. The 33,710 is the trade that I'll use 0.25% risk. But this ideally would be the trade right here that I've been waiting for, if that does happen to go through. Let's see for gold. So gold still has not established. So we're not going to get a trend line to the downside on gold, because if anything, we'll get um, a higher high here. So for this one, we just go ahead and delete that. So right now, the only two trend lines we have on gold are this trend line to the upside, and then this trend line to the from the downside. You can see we are in a supply. So this is where I first sold gold. After news, I sold gold and took profit at 50 pips. So we are still in a sell zone, but I do see price coming back to retest this trend line and retest the actually I was about to hop onto a sell, but here this trend line is a static trend line, so this trend line needs to be retested. So I do see gold coming back down around the previous daily high, which is around 2007, or to ideally retest the 9 EMA, which would ideally coincide with the previous daily high, or retest of this trend line. But other than that, I would rather wait for price to come back to the actual trend line. Since for any sell, I actually should have entered at around 2011. But right now, since we've ideally missed that little, but I already sold this during news, so I'm not really keen to um, just jump into it again. So this right here is the trade I'm waiting for. And once we do get this trade, it will ideally just spike to the upside. So again, for established trend line, you also want to wait for closure above and retest, and then closure above. So you just don't want to hop in on impulse, because because keep in mind, this is an established trend line. So price can literally reject off of here and then melt back down to the downside. So keep in mind, we do have a death cross on the hourly on US 30 that's still being established. There you go, the trend line being retested. US 30 is bullish. US 30 is partly bullish. Gold is fully bullish. EU to me is still fully bullish. So this is the sell I'm waiting for on EU around 1.10, 100. So I actually want EU to keep trending up. Gold, I expect gold to retest this trend line and then keep pumping up. Maybe this is the recovery all the way to 2050. So for gold on the hourly, if you're looking for structure, what can we see here? So we see actually this trend line that actually got possibly broken right here. Let's see the retest of that. Yeah, so we have this retest would be around, and you can see this. This is the same trend line that it's not the same, it's an opposite one, because this is the hourly and this is the 5-minute. But even on the 5-minute, I'm sorry, on the hourly, you can see if we're going to get a retest of that trend line that has been broken, it's around 2005, 2006. So I still expect gold to come back down and retest this trend line on that. So give me 1 second. All right. Yeah, so I do expect gold to come down and retest that particular trend line. And you can see we definitely have a bunch of sellers here. That's why we have to wait for closure above and then retest and closure above before entering into any buy right here on US 30. So 50 pips stop loss, 50 pips take profit. But we just want to wait for that confirmation. If you do hop in on impulse, as always, be careful and don't over leverage. What else is there to see? All right. Yeah, so use the information I have given you guys here to decide on if you see anything that lines up with what you're doing. So I might not, I might only just stick to calling live trades instead of calling trades that I take. Because here I definitely see a sell on gold that lines up with the retest of this trend line that has been broke. So keep in mind, right, this hourly trend line has been holding. So for any established trend line, you almost always have to have a retest of that trend line, right? And especially if you're seeing a supply zone within a supply zone here. So if you want to test it out, so personally, I'm in a sell up here, but it's not going to count towards this. This is just my own personal trades. And if you guys prefer for me not to call personal trades, I might just not call them. But if that's of any value to you guys, let me know and I'll keep calling them. But I personally, I did enter a sell up here because I expect, you see the analysis I just did, I just drew the trend lines. First, I saw this trend line on the 5-minute. I saw, wait, this trend line is a static trend line, has not been retested yet. We had a strong break above. And then here I did also sell during news. So I also know there's a bunch of sellers up here. It's also a supply zone within a supply zone. The hourly trend line, the retest would be around 2006, 2007 area. The 5-minute trend line to the upside retest, guess what? 2006, 2007 area. Coming from a supply zone within a supply zone. So for me, that's a no-brainer for ourselves. So that's why I entered this. I have a small sell that's around there just to test that out. And this is what we don't want, right? This is why you always have to wait for confirmation. No need to hop in on impulse. Yeah, so especially for static trend lines, don't play around with static trend lines. You always want to wait for closure above or below. Same thing with hanging trend lines. Don't play around with them. It's better to wait for a confirmation. So I did say 33,710 here. So 33,710 was where? It's all the way down here. So that's where I'll enter into any filler buy at 33,710. But until then, this is what I'm waiting for up here. All right, gold is still going. So we might get a rejection off of the previous daily high or off of the trend line or off of the 9 EMA. So for me, in the trade that I'm in, I'm not going to let it hit full TP. Once we get around 2007.50, I will go ahead and close that trade out manually. There comes back. So we retested the 9 EMA. This is 7th. Oh, I was hoping to get a bullish hammer candle. Okay, and there you go. Gold is still dropping. Let's see. Yeah, personally, I will exit this trade right now. Trade that I'm in. Okay, yeah, so I'm off of that trade. That's not gonna count as a live trade. That was just a personal trade, because I did take it off of the analysis for the hourly trend line and the 5-minute trend line that aligned. Both of those trend lines, the price points aligned together, and we were coming off of a supply zone within a supply zone. So for me, that was a no-brainer to sell gold around there. But this right here, this is what I'm waiting for. To me, this would be the best trade of the day. Let's see. So on the account, I take trades manually. I am up about, what is it? A custom period. I'm up about 0.75 for the day. Since I sold gold earlier after news, and then I did sell gold right now. So we need this candle to close, and then we need the next candle to retest the trend line and close above. And at that point, that's the area to, I would be looking to enter buy on US 30. And that is off of this 4-hour bullish high that's around here. So to me also, this is a no-brainer buy. The opposite is also true. Since this is also an established trend line, we can watch out for so for a sell, honestly, for a sell on US 30, for me to change the bias to a sell, I would probably hope for closure below this 9 EMA. But right now, price is above the 9 EMA. So right now, I'm pretty sure US 30 is bullish. So no need to look for shorts for now. Yep, and there you go. Gold kept dropping, came back to that retest. So you can see, right, on the hourly, we are around that trend line that just got broken, right? Where I said gold is likely to head 2006, 2007. Yeah, so if this hourly candle closes, but you can see even for gold, we are in heavy supply zones, right? We have a supply zone here where I personally sold up here. We are coming into another supply zone. So if this hourly candle closes below this established trend line on the hourly, gold might keep going down. However, on gold, look at this. We are having uh, golden cross forming on gold, right? So where does that line up? That lines up with around 2001 area. And guess what? 2001 area lines up with the weekly open and also lines up with this established trend line to the downside. So gold might come down here to 2001 and then spike back up. So this is what, just on simple analysis. So gold can come here, have rejection here, come to 2001 and then come up and take off all this liquidity and then keep pushing up. So let's see if that's going to play out. US 30. Yeah, this is a tricky trade. But you can see right here we do have a bunch of sellers right here. So this is why this is going to be a very important point of selling or either buying. So for any sells, if I was to, yeah, I don't feel comfortable even trying to look for sells because what else do I see on the 5-minute? Look at where the 200 EMA is. Look at where the 9 EMA is. We possibly have a golden cross forming on US 30 over the next, on the 5-minute, over the next maybe 1 or so hours. On the hourly, we do have that death cross forming, but keep in mind, normally the hour higher time frames override any smaller time frames. But anything can happen, right? A golden cross does not have to materialize. A death cross does not have to materialize. So, but that filler buy on gold would be, I'm sorry, on US 30 would be at around 33,710 with a 0.25% risk. So that would be an early entry because ideally that would be the middle of the 4-hour bullish high and then the 4-hour bullish low. Let's see. EU is still bullish, I believe. Yeah, US 30, to be honest, is still bullish as well. Does anybody have any questions? Remember today I'll be ending the session at around 10:30, which is around 5 minutes from now because I have to run off and do something else. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. But the buy zone on US 30 will be 33,750. So when this buy does come, remember you need to wait for closure above this established trend line from this higher high to this lower high, and then retest of that trend line and closure above, and only then will you enter the buy on US 30. So I have about 4 minutes before I have to end the session, but I'll wait for closure of this candle and then I'll wait for closure of the next candle. And then if we do get an entry, well and good. If we don't, you guys just watch out for that post the live session. Yeah, so gold is still dropping to the downside. Dropped about, so I sold gold around 2010, 2009. So dropped about 40 pips. Yeah, so this is what I expect for gold. You can see right now we are holding below this hourly trend line, but we also have this golden cross that's forming on gold. And that golden cross, remember, for any golden cross or death cross, normally you have a retest of the 9 EMA or 200 EMA before the either crosses materialize. And then the reason I lined up this is that this is around the area where we'll have the 9 EMA and 200 EMA on the hourly. So this is, and also lines up with this established trend line from the downside. So personally, if we do get here, I will also be buying gold at around 2002, 2001. If I do get the right confluences. So for here, of course, you need a retest and closure above, and hopefully another retest and closure above to enter into any buys. So hopefully we get this trade in the next 5-minute candle. So this is what I want. I want this candle to close above that trend line. And then I want the next, so if this candle closes above the trend line and then the next 5-minute candle closes below this trend line, I'll just call it a day. Personally, I'm up about 0.75 for the day on the manual account. On the signals account, to be honest, this account is just back and forth. So right now, I think it took some more trades. I've just been in and out of profit. So let's see how much I'm up. Custom period today. Yeah, I'm ideally down still about the same amount. So right now I'm just down minus $1,300. So this account, I'll just let it run and see where it ends up for the day. So for this signals account, that's copying from a $1,500 live to a 100K live to a 300K challenge, and actually to another 50K challenge that I started for a friend yesterday. That account is down 1.5% for the day. But for the manual account that I'm trading, I'm up 0.8 for the day or 0.7. So yeah, so this candle did not close below, sorry, above the trend line. And now we had a gap up. But yeah, I don't think I'll stay on the live session. For any sells right now, let me see. So there's definitely a bunch of sellers up there. US 30 to me is still bullish. And then also just looking at the candles, these candles have just been squeezing up slowly by slowly. So like if you just draw this, I can see an automatic trend up or closure above, right? All these 5-minute candles, they're just holding. So price is ideally squeezing in between now this established trend line and this, I'm not going to call this a trend line, but ideally the 5-minute candles are just establishing higher highs. So there's definitely a squeeze forming. Okay, I'll wait for this candle and I'll wait for the next candle. Now, if the next 10 minutes don't give us any entry, I will call it a day, but I will still be on the charts. I just have to run off and do something else. I might just set a pending buy order at around 33,755. Yeah, but this is so this is still a trade. So you use 0.75, I'm sorry, 0.5% risk. What we are waiting for, we are waiting for closure above this established trend line, and then we are waiting for a retest of the established trend line and closure above on the 5-minute, and that at that point, that is where we will enter the buy on US30. So whether it's during the live session or whether it's later, that would be the entry for US30. EU, I'm still waiting for EU to come up here. But right now on EU, you can see we closed below this trend line, retested this trend line, but again, we are still trending to the upside. So, but also on EU, you can see we are at around an hourly bearish high, but EU to me is still bullish. So it might just slowly trend up. So let's just wait and see if we're going to get anything here for US30. Uh, Let me see. Is there anything else I wanted to mention? Yeah. I think I already mentioned ideally pretty much like the side notes I wanted to mention today. So just to recap, for this particular group, going forward, always make sure that you are following proper risk management. Make sure that you're learning. If you find that this group does not give you any value, and as I said earlier, like it definitely is up to you, and I would definitely recommend always look for value. As with anything in life, if something doesn't, like, leave alone even trading groups, if something in life doesn't give you any value, always look for value. Always strive to look for value, even though it's elsewhere. Ideally, I'm saying this, so same reasons I gave earlier. I've been in a bunch of trading groups and across multiple ones, as much as even the bad ones gave me a bunch of bad experiences, I still moved ahead and never ever gave up. And then, here I am running my own group. So ideally, when I'm doing all this live trading, I always try to think and see myself where I was 5 or 6 years ago and try to implement the things my mentors or the people that I was following did not really teach me. Um, yeah, because like some other groups, right? They'll try to just show you they're making 20,000 a day and all of that. And for you guys who've seen me in other groups, like in an EA group that I'm also in, I used to post maybe even 10,000 profits for the day or 5,000. Not that I still do have those accounts, but when I started this group, like the results you'll find from me, like if you go in here, I'll post, I always post my losses. I'll post maybe $500 win. So, but for this particular group, one thing I decided, I'm never gonna post like when I make 20,000 or when I make 5,000, because I realized that when the people that are, so for this one, we need US30 to come back down. So this is the same thing as yesterday, right? So yesterday we got faked out when we entered on impulse, right? But previously, how we always get those no drawdown trades, we always think, where is the next probable area or optimal area that we can enter a trade, and then we have more probability of winning, right? So you can enter on impulse or retest of structure. So the next structure is around this higher high, but that's still around almost impulse. And then you have retest of a trend line or retest of the 9 EMA. So this right here is still the point of entry, 33,752. So let US30 do whatever it's doing. Keep in mind, we do have a golden cross forming on the 5-minute. However, right, that golden cross, the 9 EMA and 200 EMA, and not so, in any case, right now, I'd be looking to enter into a quick short to ride price back down. The reason is because the 9 EMA and 200 EMA are so far away from each other. Well, not so far away, but they're far enough away from each other. I still do expect US30 to come down here, tap me in at 33,750, and then price to go all the way back up. Yeah, but to recap, uh, so I joined one of the groups I used to follow today, and the person was just trying to show the profits they made off of a trade that they just jumped into. So and that's one of the reasons why I don't focus on money anymore here. That's why I always say, oh, for this trade we made 0.5%, we made 0.25%. So whether you make $20 a day, if that's 5% or if that's 1%, hey, you're doing amazing. If you can consistently make $1,000 a day, $5,000 a day, more power to you. But if you're not there yet to make 1,000, 5,000 a day, and in any case for me, I post all the losses I take, I actually post. So whether I'm taking a $5,000 loss or $4,000 loss, like I'm still gonna post that. But if I make $5,000 profits or 10,000, I'm not gonna post that in this group because in my experience, that actually led me to blow a lot of accounts because I was trying to be like the person who's making 5,000 a day. But when I post like $1,000 loss or $2,000 loss, as much as you see me making maybe 2,000, 3,000, you also know that, hey, he's also human. He also loses trades, and you can see all my trades have a TP and have a stop loss, right? Um, so it's all about risk management, and so long as you follow risk management, it doesn't matter. The monetary value never ever matters. All that matters is the percentage return you're doing, because if you can make 0.5% easily a day, the one day you'll have a 100K account, you'll have a 500K account, it's going to be the same thing. Just do the same thing you've been doing with a $100 account. And then the one day that everything's going to line up for you and you've been practicing and everything, you'll be able to make 5,000 a day or 10,000 or 2,000 a day. So just give it time. Yeah, so here, honestly, for me, I will put a pending order at around 33,752, and I'll just go and do my business because I don't, again, I'm supposed to be doing something else right now, so I don't have time to wait for now. Give me 1 second. So 0.5% risk, 500 pips TP, 500 pips stop loss. Hmm. I'm trying to do this on this account. Where's my US30 chart? Okay. Yeah, so you see how I was saying, in any case, I would have taken a short to right price back down. Let me see if I'm gonna get filled on the live session. But ideally, so the only thing for this, you want to wait for retest and closure above. You don't want to enter on impulse. But for me, because I don't have time to do all of that, and I'm already up 0.8 for the day or 0.75, I'll just set a pending order. Whatever happens to it happens. But if you guys still have time on the charts, do not enter in on impulse. Always wait for the closure of the candle because this candle can come up. So remember, we still have death cross on the hourly. So this candle can come up and engulf all these candles and close as a strong bearish candle. But for me, because I don't have that time, I will just enter into a pending order, pending buy order at around 33,7, yeah, 33,750 area, 0.5%. Trying to see how do I enter a pending order with this trade manager. So, I need to look up how to enter pending orders with my trade manager. Anyway, I'll just set it manually and then go from there. 33,750. Then my TP would be 33. Excuse me. And then 33,7. No, not 749. 33,699, I think. Huh. This is I'm still setting this. Okay, and then I just have to manually manage it. Stop loss is 33. Not sure if it's gonna come back down. 699. TP is 33.8. Does anybody have any questions before I end the stream? Okay, I just set my pending order for this trade. So if it comes back down, if it fills me well and good, if not, then the analysis played out. So not every time will we get that perfect retest, but you can see like right here, it was ideally trying to reject off of this lower high up here. Yeah. So other than that, I will see you, unless anybody has any questions, I will see you guys tomorrow to close out the week. Let's see what we have. EU. So EU is also closing. We had that close below the 9 EMA on the 5 minute, and then this candle is retesting the 9 EMA and closing below. It's also coming from an hourly bearish high, hourly bearish low. It's also going into a supply zone within a supply zone. So this is also a possible sell on EU once this candle closes. But for me, I would like my stop loss to be somewhere above 1.10150. So just use proper risk management if you enter into this trade. The other thing, we also had a closure below this trend line that has been holding EU to the upside, and then retest of this trend line and closure below. We are ideally in a heavy sell zone. So anywhere within this zone is a sell zone for EU. But for now, the only trade that I'll have officially marked up for the live session is that this US 30 trade. I have a pending buy order down there. Yeah, for EU, this would be the sell. Do I wanna let me see. 22 seconds. Let me look at my chart to see. EU. I mean it's looking good for me. See where 20 pips stop loss would be, 20 pips take profit. Yeah, so I'll enter this short on EU, 20 pips stop loss, 20 pips take profit. If you can, make sure your stop loss is above 1.10158, so that your stop loss is above that previous high or high at the very top. Just 1 second. Did I even enter it? Yes. Okay, so I'm in the EU sell right now. 20 pips stop loss, 20 pips take profit. See one thing. Okay. Yeah, so these are the two. If you can, it's better to have your stop loss above all these sell zones, but we do have this hourly bearish high and bearish low. We have the previous daily high here. We have the weekly high to ideally protect our position. However, you see our stop loss is around the supply zone within a supply zone. So price can ideally come back up. So price can ideally come to pick up liquidity in any of these supply zones that are up here. So just use proper risk management. So even for this trade, 0.5%, risk. So the only two trades I've called today on the live session is this EU sell that's currently running in profit, and then this US 30 buy that I've set a pending order down here. But other than that, unless anybody has any questions, if you do continue trading for the rest of the day, use proper risk management. We definitely have a golden cross forming on US 30 at this point. If you keep trading, make sure to use proper risk management. Does anybody have any questions? All right. If not, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.